In the spring of 1997, a quirky story with an unlikely title attracted an impressive lineup of Hollywood stars to Wilmington, North Carolina, for the filming of the 193rd presentation of the Hallmark Hall of Fame, What the Deaf Man Heard.
I hadn't read the script yet when they called me and asked me if I'd like to participate in it, and they told me the people who had committed to it, and it was, James Earl Jones, Judith Ivey, and Tom Skerritt, Bernadette Peters, and I said, wow, I mean, this must be some really wonderful material.
The story opens in 1945. When his mother is killed, 10-year-old Sammy Ayers finds himself alone in the bus station of a small Georgia town. Confused and frightened, he recalls his mother's last words.
The last thing I say is not one more word out of you, and he just kind of, that sticks in his mind, and he remembers that, and it carries him through his whole life.
Because the townspeople assume Sammy is deaf, he hears all of their secrets and is the only one who knows what's really going on. The character of Sammy grew out of stories that writer Dan Gerino heard while growing up in the South.
I remembered a story my mother used to tell me about a fellow that lived in a bus station in this little town where she grew up. And I decided that having someone like that tell a story about a small town would be a very deft way of revealing some secrets. I made him deaf. But of course, if he were really deaf, he couldn't hear things. So he had to be someone that everyone considered deaf.
When I read it, I mean, there's so many things that came back to me, the things that I'd been taught as a child, about, I grew up in that time when people still said, children are supposed to be seen and not heard, and you can't hear anything if your mouth is making noise.
There's some poignant things that happened to Sammy, and yet there's always an edge of humor going on, which I think defines people's intelligence in a way, how aware they are of humor, how easily they can laugh.
It makes it also a wonderful piece to act that way because it gives it a kind of tightrope feel to it of what's comic and what's serious, and to teeter on that is so much fun.
I'm sure it's the material. I'm sure it's such an unusual story, and actors are storytellers, directors are storytellers, and we're always looking for an unusual story that hasn't been told before.
It's an extraordinary piece of acting, just 90 minutes of the best acting you'll ever see in your life. I've never experienced a cast like this or heard of a cast like this in television. And Matthew Modine at the center of it, we really understood the story. We understood the same story. And we understood it was a story not of revenge, but of redemption.
It's a story about secrets. In Kahlil Gibran's book, The Prophet, he says that you speak when you fail to be at peace with your thoughts. And that seemed to me to be a real key into my character and into the idea of this story.
For Modine, there was just one sure way to get into the character of Sammy. He decided not to speak when he first came on the set.
So I spoke to John Kent Harrison, the director, and explained to him why I thought it was important, and for him as well as me, and the crew. That how will they approach somebody that doesn't speak? How will they adjust themselves to this?
This is a great idea, because let's just observe how people try to deal with them, and that's how people will deal with the character in the story.
Ironically, the first time Matthew Modine does speak in the movie, just 2 words, his lines had to be re-recorded in the studio after filming was complete.
The film is taking place in the 60s, and there was a contemporary car alarm making noise in the background at the moment when I was saying "I do" in the courtroom, the first 2 words that I speak in the film.
But his vow of silence produced one major disappointment during his very first day on the set, which was Bernadette Peters' last day.
I continue to have a crush on Bernadette, and she came over and she sat down and she said, I've loved your work for so long, and I've so admired you, and I was so looking forward to talking with you. She sang this incredible song to me about somebody who kept a secret, and she left the trailer.
The cast seemed to fit together seamlessly. making the experience a memorable one for the actors.
It's just a delight to be, you know, Lucille, the sort of buoyant, loud, brassy one, and he's the soft, quiet, withdrawn Norm. And for the two of us to skate together like that, it's just heaven. It's just heaven. It's why you want to be an actor.
Oh, it works from the person first, you know. The magic isn't only on the screen. It's you like the people you're working with. I had the same rapport with Kathy Baker, and this lady Judith is a very grounded, wonderful human being, and I like her right off the bat.
The actors developed the same closeness with John Kent Harrison.
He's wonderful. He's the best. He's a true actor's director.
That's what's wonderful about him, is he's very supportive.
He's kind of an old-fashioned man, you know, the kind of a director who's interested in story, who's not real interested in, you know, impressing people with his camera movements and his camera work.
This is the most fun I've ever had making a picture. But there was such simpatico on the set that I felt absolutely free to play with the camera. And so I let my intuition take over. And if I felt the camera should be there, it went there.
The cast and crew's shared sense of purpose paid off when it came time to film the dramatic bonfire scene. The entire cast, dozens of extras, and a special effects team was involved. Every movement was carefully choreographed to ensure the camera was always in the right place to capture the drama, but safety was never compromised. The entire rally was shot on the grounds of an historic Wilmington church. The burning of the church, however, was a bit of Hollywood special effects magic. A replica of the front, complete with a stained glass window, was constructed adjacent to the church itself. And that's what was burned. For Dan Gerino, it was a thrill to see his story come to life on the screen for the Hallmark Hall of Fame.
I keep having a little old me reaction. I did not harbor any hope that all the people that are in the movie would come together for one film. It was a jaw-dropper.
There was also something special about being part of a Hallmark Hall of Fame presentation.
And I honestly do believe that it's the history of Hallmark, you know, that of being a part of this legacy of films that we've all grown up with. I remember sitting down and watching that. That was an event where the family got together to watch a Hallmark Hall of Fame film as a child, and you know, that to have the opportunity to be invited to be a member of that family was a wonderful privilege to me.
Well, I have the same reaction whenever they tell me they have a script for me to read that's a Hallmark Hall of Fame. It has a stamp on it that comes ahead, that precedes it, you know, that you think that's one you pay extra attention to.
I think primarily what excited me about the material was an articulation of the concept of democracy. That here the people seem to get their comeuppance, that there is an equality, that everybody has a chance, and that everyone does their best to help the other guy.
I do think I live in probably the best country in the world, nation in the world. Flawed, certainly, but there's a lot of respect for the human being here that doesn't go on around the world. And so to see a myth and a story about what we think of as our quintessential American culture with the good, bad, and different is heartwarming for me. I like to be part of that.
When you reach a time in your life when you're faced with a dilemma of having to stand up for those things that you believe in, you know, whether it's your country or your family, to defend those ideas that you hold to be true, do you have the courage to stand up and speak out against those, you know, injustices, against those tyrannies? And that's what I'd say that this story represents to me.